In this video I'm going to be upgrading a HP Elite 8200 convertible micro tower. So this is quite an old computer. It's about 8 years old. It's been used for the past 8 years as a file server and Active Directory server. So it currently just has an onboard graphics chip. I'll be upgrading that to an RX 550 graphics card pending delivery of a GTX 1660 Super. And I'll also be upgrading its current main hard disk from a 3 terabyte 7200 RPM drive to a 512 GB SSD. So currently it has three 7200 RPM drives. The top one is a 3 terabyte drive, the middle one is a 1 terabyte drive, and the bottom one is also another 1 terabyte drive. The middle drive is not functional, so I'll just not be connecting it. It also has 16 GB of RAM, and it's currently running an i5-2500, the second gen processor. And it also has a proprietary HP power supply that runs at 320 watts, which I'll be upgrading at some point to a 550 watt PSU. HP currently has a different type of connector. Instead of using a standard 24-pin connector, it uses a 6-pin connector, so I'll need an adapter for that to work. It currently doesn't have any graphics card, as you can see. It just has a network card there, and there we have an optical drive, which I will be disconnecting as I'm not going to be using it at all. So before we begin with the upgrade, we're going to need to clone our current computer setup so that we can easily just transfer it to the new hard drive and not have to go through the whole installation of Windows and installing all of the software that was previously on your computer. So you can do this easily for free, either using the Windows pre-installed system image recovery, but I tried this and I kept getting errors when I tried to restore the image onto my desktop. So what I've found is a different software which you can use, which works actually much better than the Windows system image recovery, and that's Veeam Agent for Microsoft Windows. So to get that, you'll just go to type in, just go to Google and then type in Veeam Agent for Windows, and there, see many people have already searched for it, so just select that, and then it'll just be this first one that shows up. Okay, so you click on that, and that'll take you to the download page for this. The free version works perfectly well, and yeah, this is free for home use. So just click on download now. Then it'll ask you to log in. So you can either create an account or you can sign in with your Gmail account. I'll just quickly sign in with my Gmail. Okay, so once you're in, it'll take you to the download page. You just have to scroll down and go to download. Accept the license agreement, accept, and that'll start downloading. So I had already downloaded this before, so I'll just cancel this and go to my downloads. Okay, so here it is, Veeam Agent for Windows. You just right click on that and extract here. There's only one file in the folder, so just extract it here. Okay, and then you'll have this installer. So you'll just double click on that and proceed through the installation. Again, just accept the license agreement and install. Okay, so once it's finished installing, you can leave this ticked, run the Veeam Recovery Media Creation Wizard if you're ready to begin. So I'll just click finish. Okay, now I've not connected anything, and it's important to note that once you've connected your recovery media, it'll delete everything that is on there. So it's important to make sure that you don't need the flash, or you don't need that whatever is on that drive. So in this case, this Transcend 1 terabyte drive is not, it doesn't have anything on it at the moment, so I'm using it purely for this storage. Okay, so the reason it's not showing up in here is because I haven't connected it, so I'll just connect that now. Alright, so you see you have a completely fresh 1 terabyte drive, nothing on it. So what you can do, if your drive is encrypted with BitLocker, and perhaps you don't have the decryption key, or you don't really care about the security of this drive, it could be that you're just doing the restore to the other computer, and then you're going to wipe it anyway. You can just tick this, just makes it easier. You don't need the BitLocker encryption key. But if you'll be keeping this as a backup that you'll be storing somewhere, I'd leave this unticked just to secure your data, because if you tick this, anyone who has access to this backup drive will be able to restore your machine on any computer. So leave that unticked if you'll actually be using this as a backup media. If not, like in my case, I'm just using it to restore, then I'll wipe it. I'm just going to tick this include. Okay, so you can also tick here this last one to include additional storage and network hardware drivers if you have them, but I don't have any of those. Everything that I have is going to be covered under this include hardware drivers from this computer, so I don't need any additional drivers. So what I'll do is I'll select this and click on next. So it's just warning you again that this is going to be formatted and any data that's present will be lost. So just make sure you've backed up anything you need from this drive, and then click yes. And then you can just verify everything is correct and click create. So this will go through the process of creating just the boot menu. This is not going to do the actual backup. So this is going to do the boot drive that'll be used to restore the system later on. So we'll let this run through and then we'll be back. Okay, so that's done. And it's now created another drive. If you see this, this is a local disk E. So if we go back to this PC, you'll see that it's created this boot media, which is 1 gig, 282 of which is free. If you open this, there's nothing. So that drive is available now for the backup. Okay, so now we need to actually run the backup. So what we'll do is we will right click here on the Veeam agent that's showing up in the taskbar now. If you don't see it, just click on this arrow and then you should see it show up here. So just right click on that and go to backup and then do configure backup. Okay, and then this will just give it a job name. So it doesn't really matter what you call it. I'll just leave it called desktop RJV, whatever, the name that Windows gives this computer. Then it'll just show you who's creating it. So this is just the desktop and the username. So click on next. Okay, so then it asks you what you want to back up. So I'm going to be backing up the entire computer, which will basically just take a copy of everything. You can also include external USB drives if they're connected. I don't have any connected. You can also do volume level backup. So this one lets you do backups of specific volumes. So if you just wanted, let's say you had a D drive that was for storage, you could do that, just back up that one. And this won't back up any sort of deleted temporary files, page files, anything like that. Those just to make the backup size as small as possible. And then you can also back up individual files and folders. But as it says, it's slower. I guess this is because it has to index the files. Yeah, but for this video, we're going to be selecting entire computer. So we'll just click next. Alright, and this just asks you now where you want to back up to. You can back up to a local drive, which includes external hard drives. You can back up to a shared folder on a network or a network attached storage device if you have one. You can also back it up to a Veeam backup repository. So this is an online server that you can back up to, or you can back up to Microsoft OneDrive if you have sufficient space, which is a pretty handy tool to have for free software. So you can click on local storage, because I'll just be using a USB drive, so we'll click on that and click on next. Okay, then it asks you, it shows you what you'll be backing up, so, or where you'll be backing up to rather. So you just select the one that you'll be backing up to. Then it asks you again, keep backups for. You can set how many days you want to keep backups for. I'm only doing this once, so I'm just going to leave it with the default. So I've just selected where I want it to back up to, which is this local disk E, which is the USB drive, and then I'll click next. Okay, then it asks you when you want to do backups. So I'm just going to click apply because it doesn't really matter for me. Okay, so it'll give you a summary of what you've selected, and then you just need to tick this, run the job when I click finish, and click finish, and that should begin the job. So we'll just let this run through. It's going to take a while. For mine, it should take about 50 minutes. 50 minutes to an hour, 15 minutes, depending on how large my backup is. So I'll just let that run through and see you later. Okay, so the backup is done. We can just close this and refresh this. Okay, so we see that the backup is here. Saves the job name there. So the desktop and backup file is here, 117 GB, which should match the used space on the C drive, not counting the page files and temporary files that it didn't save. And now we can install the hardware. So this is the graphics card I'll be using, the RX 550. It doesn't have a 6-pin connector, so it'll just run off the power from the PCI Express slot. It's a 4 GB version running at 128-bit. It's a GDDR5, and it has a display port, HDMI, and DVI port. And this card was around $100. Okay, and this is the 512 GB SSD that I'll be using. It's just a generic DM Chinese SSD drive. Just as normal SATA connector. This was the cheapest one I could find. Where I live, computer parts are pretty pricey, and this is the cheapest that I could get for this kind of build. But I've never really had any issues with these DM drives in the past, so it should work fine. And this drive was about $70. So it has two PCI Express 16 slots. I'll be putting it in the black one, just to give the fan as much space to gather air as possible. Just knowing that this tower isn't built for gaming. So HP made it pretty easy to unlock these guards. You just press down these two green clips and that unlocks the guards. And we'll need to take two of the guards out because the RX 550 takes up 2 slots. So then you just take the card and you line it up with the slots. It was a bit tricky doing this with one hand, so I'll cut to the bit where it's already inside. Okay, and there we have it installed. As I mentioned, it doesn't have a 6-pin connector, so it just draws its power directly from the PCI Express 16 slot. Now I know I'm going to catch some flack for this, but I'm going to insert my 2.5-inch SSD just above the non-functional drive here, because my mount hasn't arrived yet. So once that comes, I'll put it in the correct slot and have it properly mounted. So now that I'm done installing the graphics card and SSD drive, we'll boot into our boot menu and we'll load the boot drive that we created in Veeam, which is, for me, is the Transcend 1TB drive. Okay, in this screen, we'll select a bare metal recovery. Alright, then this just shows you the backup on the local storage. You should match the same time that you did yours. So you see here it was 1050 for me. That matches the backup that we just did, so we'll click next. And then you'll choose to do entire computer, which will restore everything. Click next. Then just gives you a summary, and then click restore. So this then now will run through the restore process, and we'll let it run through and come back. Okay, so the restore is done. Just click finish, and then it'll ask you to reboot the computer. Just say yes. So I had tried to do this earlier with the fresh restore, but it wasn't working correctly. It seems that you need the drivers for this to be able to capture properly. But basically, when you get back into Windows, you just go to Google, search for AMD Auto Install, and then click on the Auto Detect and Install AMD Radeon drivers. Then click here on Obtaining Graphics Drivers using the AMD Driver Auto Detect tool. Okay, just close that. Then click on AMD driver and support page and download this. Okay, so I'd already downloaded that. We'll just cancel this and then we'll run it. Okay, and once you run that file, it'll download the drivers, install them, and then it'll ask you to restart the computer once the drivers are installed. So once your drivers are installed and you've restarted the computer and you're back in Windows, just hold down the Windows key and the R key on your keyboard, type in dxdiag, hit enter, click on the display tab, and then you see the graphics card is being correctly identified and all the specs are there. You can also install a tool like CPU-Z to get that. Everything is installed, but if we check the Windows installation drive, C drive, you'll see that it's only 236 GB, and yet I installed a 512 GB solid state drive. So if you right click on this PC and go to manage, and then go to storage and disk management, you'll see that there's 238 GB unallocated. This is because when I did the clone from the other drive, it was just a 256 GB drive. So when it clones it onto this one, it only retains the size of the volumes that were there. So we have the 650 MB FE system partition, then we have the Win retools for recovery, and we have the C drive that was this large on the laptop. And then we have 238.48 GB, which is unallocated because it didn't have that space on that other hard drive. So it's pretty easy to expand this drive to use up this unallocated space as well. But because this is not adjacent to the unallocated space, the Windows Partition Manager can't extend it. So the easiest way to get around this is just to use a free piece of software called Paragon Manager. So you'll just type in Paragon Manager in Google. There we go. So it already opened this and downloaded it, but you'll just open this one. It's paragon-software.com, and you can get the community edition, which is completely free for home and personal use. So you'll just download that, and you'll click on this download 64-bit. I mean, if you're using a 32-bit version of Windows, then you can download that. But yeah, I got the 64-bit version. So once that's downloaded, go ahead and install it, and then you can run it. So we'll just run it here. Say yes. Okay, now we have the same sort of setup we saw in the Windows one. You could just close this message for the recovery media. And so we want to expand this C drive into this unallocated space. So you just right click on it. Just click on it, then click on expand. Okay, and then by default it'll expand it into the unallocated space. So you could resize this if you wanted, and then keep a bit for another volume if you wanted to, but I'm just going to select all of it, use up all of the unallocated space, and then you can just expand it. Okay, so that successfully expanded the drive. If you click close, close that, and then go back to this PC, you'll see that it's now expanded into the unallocated space. If you check the Windows Manager, Disk Manager, you'll see that that's now expanded into that space. And so that's how you make sure you use up all of the drive and you know, use up all of the unallocated space. So in the next video I'll run a few benchmarks and play a few games. I'll try Fortnite, GTA, maybe some others, just to show you how the gameplay is. Now you shouldn't expect anything like 60 FPS, especially in modern games. Even in Fortnite, I'd be lucky to get 40, but it's a much better improvement than what it was. I mean, it was only running on an onboard chip. We'll see how it'll be when I get the GTX 1660 Super as well. But the CPU is a bit of a bottleneck, so it will affect gameplay. I need to upgrade the motherboard and processor at some point. Alright, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe.